The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro and welcome to WGAL 8 in Focus. Traditional justice punishes the offender, but restorative justice aims to heal the damage that was caused by the crime. But how does that work, and is it successful? It's a popular catchphrase, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But there's a growing movement to change what justice looks like.
Our system, our criminal justice system, harms people who harm people to show that harming people is wrong. Go figure.
Restorative justice is to rehabilitate the offender and in some cases reconcile with victims face to face. Some schools are using the same approach.
I think it's important for people to understand there are different ways to respond to things that have gone wrong.
But is this approach working? Is justice really being restored? And with us today to talk more about this concept are Argeli Ayala, who went through the restorative justice program in Lancaster County, and we welcome you. You are 16 years old, and you're going to talk with us about what you went through. And Christopher Fitz, who is with a community organization called ADVOS. And first off, Christopher, maybe you can tell me just what that organization is and how you got involved in this.
Yeah, we're a community-based organization that does both mediation with people who are in conflict as well as restorative justice dialogue with people who have been harmed and who have actually caused harm.
As I mentioned, this is a very broad concept. Can you narrow it down for us and tell us exactly what we mean by restorative justice, how that works?
Yeah, it's about bringing usually someone who's caused harm, offender, with a victim, somebody who's been harmed by them. That could be a property owner, but it could also be somebody who's been actually physically harmed. And having a conversation about that harm and talking about how to make things right and how to move forward with both of their lives. And there's also a piece about bringing in the community that's very important. And so as a community-based organization, we work with volunteers who and are looking at how do we bring in parents, mentors, and other people to really carry forward the decisions and the vision that people come out of when they engage in restorative justice.
So there are a lot of people involved in the dialogue.
Yeah, it's not just a separation and isolation of somebody who did wrong and working on them. It's bringing them together to be part of the solution.
Speaking of wrong, Argeli, what did you do that got you in trouble?
I had kicked my principal's window.
Whoa.
Yes.
And you broke that window, correct?
Oh, yes, I broke that window. That window was very broken.
And when did this happen?
I'd say about a year ago. There were a lot of things going on that morning, and came to school pretty ticked off, and they had addressed me for something that had happened a week ago prior. Something dumb, but I snapped, make it a lot bigger than I had to. I snapped, walked out the classroom. I was being restrained, and I felt like deep down I was gonna hit one of the teachers. So I walked off, just split off, just walked out. And as I was walking to the room I was just gonna sit in, I just kind of snapped and I kicked this window.
So obviously you were very angry.
I was very angry, yes. There are a lot of different ways I could have went about addressing that anger, but, did some dumb things. But
some dumb things that you've obviously learned a lot of lessons, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Is this something you could have said back then, been talking like this?
If I'm being 100% honest, probably not. There have been a lot of events that have happened even within this small year span of time, but there was a lot of events that happened that allowed me more or less to mature from that situation on. I've seen things dealt with, a lot of things that most people don't really deal with, or sometimes they do. But at the end of the day, it's...
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Like
with things that you've seen?
Like you just like issues that you have at home or issues that you have outside of home. But it's a lot of things that you go through that at the end of the day matures you and builds you up for the future. Like this whole year, I'd been taken away from my dad, brought here with my mom. Big change, way big change. I wasn't ready for it. Like I lashed out, I bottled up a lot of emotions and anger, and I let it out the wrong way. My mom has helped me with so much through all of this, and my probation officer has helped me with a lot as well. And this whole thing with Advos, with Ken, he's helped me with so much. Like, when I had that meeting with my principal, I honestly felt like I'm going into a death trap. Like, this dude hates me. I just shattered his window right in front of him. Like, you know, like, there's no coming back from this.
You thought you were going to get in serious trouble.
Yeah, I thought I was crucified. You know, I thought I was screwed. But he didn't hate me for it. I thought he was really going to hate me for it. But he really tried to help me. Like, he wasn't being spiteful or anything about it. He really just moved on from the situation and really made things, like, he made things a lot easier for me, and I'm grateful for that. Like,
Yeah.
I really am.
So how did Advos get involved in this case and helping Arheli?
Yeah, so Arheli was part of a juvenile justice process that does balance and restorative justice, looking at community safety, is looking at building up Arheli's skills and ability to respond to the next issue. And so we were referred from the court to be part of what his consequences are. And so we're a part of the accountability system of a juvenile court system that is really focused on a balanced and restorative approach. And so I do think it's pretty important to understand how the juvenile justice system is focused much more in this direction, but the adult system is not. It's possible in the adult system.
But this can apply to adults as well.
Yeah,
can it not?
absolutely, absolutely. The learning, the healing that happens. My own personal introduction to restorative justice came when I was a kid, and 10 years old, a guy burned down our barn accidentally, trying to steal gas out of a vehicle in our barnyard, in the barn. And my parents had two questions. Like, they had a concern, a moral concern for what happens to this young man, 26 years old, but they also had this question: who's going to clean up the mess, and why should he sit in jail? We're paying tax dollars for him to sit in jail.
We should make him clean up the mess.
When he could be helping shovel the ashes. So it was a very practical question that wasn't a moral question at all at some level. And so he got out of prison early, petitioned by my parents. And I was a 10-year-old kid sitting on the porch eating corn on the cob with him, listening to his stories about his growing up, just like Arheli. What happened that night with him? Why he felt so desperate that he had to go to our house and steal gas.
Wow. So they were practicing restorative justice, and they maybe didn't even know it.
Yeah. And
with that, that whole thing that happened with what he was talking about, with him coming home, well, not necessarily home, but him coming back to, clean up that mess, it honestly gave him and that person to really, in a sense, bond, if you really think about it. Restorative justice can really bring two people, for instance, they were strangers, entirely different strangers. He was just a kid minding his own business. This dude came to steal some gas, But, it's little things like that, and the process that helps build things back up is what makes things better. The outcome is a lot better than, if you didn't take that step to
get to know somebody.
Yeah, right? Atone.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to keep both of you here. We're going to hear more about your story, Arheli, and what you're doing now and how you're doing and how you got to this point. And this practice is also being used in school districts. We're going to hear from a restorative justice coordinator in one Susquehanna Valley school district and hear what he has to say about how it's helping students.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We are talking about restorative justice, a practice that helps heal and repair damage caused by crime. And joining us now in this conversation, Robert Fenimore, who is a restorative practices coordinator at Elanco School District in Lancaster County. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is such an interesting topic and so broad, but also reaches to schools. What's the object in school districts? How do you use this?
What we're trying to do at Elanco is really build context, build skills, build relationships. I mean, when you hear this kid talk, how great is this kid? This kid is articulate, he's empathic. This is the type of kid that at Elanco, we don't necessarily view him as being incomplete, we view him as being unfinished. This is a kid that we really want to build on. This is a kid who's able to articulate, I've moved, other things are going on in my life. When he talks about how heated he was already, restorative practices are first off going to try and de-escalate the situation. We're going to try and connect with this kid. We're going to help this kid build the skills so that this kid, with all that's going on in and out of school, is able to access what we're trying to do socially, curricularly, in a community focus. We're trying to make this kid want to be a part of our program. That's what I feel like should be going on in our schools, instead of almost sometimes waiting for him to mess up and then being in a hurry to punish. We have so many stakeholders that are actively trying to almost rob us of the conflict that's going on. I don't want conflict being stolen. I want the conflict to be healed between the offender and the victim.
I know just from what I've read, there has been some criticism. Teachers say they don't have the training for this kind of thing. This takes too long. How do you address that?
One of the things at Elanco that we're trying to do is we're not doing a top-down model. We're not doing the newest. We're not adding more to teachers' plates. What we're trying to do is involve them in a conversation so that they can have their needs and worries heard and met. And what we're trying to do is bring kids into a conversation where they can explain what they're frustrated by, how they're not being heard. You know, it's so interesting when you ask a kid what's going on, sometimes they're able to articulate that, and sometimes they'll say, I'm tired, I'm bored. You know, for the educational theorists out there.
Or something, as Arheli said, is going on at home.
Absolutely. What we're trying to do is, you know, to use some educational theory here, we're trying to meet kids at their Maslow level before we get to their Bloom's level. You know, we have to make kids want to be in school. That's why with restorative practices, we're working on mindfulness. We're paying attention to social emotional learning. We're building relationships. All throughout Elanco, I'm working with 5 to 6 different building principals who care a lot about their kids, who are spending time with their kids, who are trying to build those skills with their kids to be able to help them access more of what we're trying to do. Schools are under immense pressure. We need more of a focus, and all of these test scores and all of these kids matter, and all of this time matters. It's this commodity that we don't spend enough time on. One of the things restorative practices does that alleviates some of those initial fears about it being soft on crime is we're trying to invest in kids, and we're also investing in the conflict to heal it so that that conflict doesn't cause more harm.
Arheli, does that ring true to you, some of what he's saying, what's going on in schools?
Yeah. I mean, see, when I was in Ephrata, things were a little different. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there were some evil teachers there, but a lot of my teachers up in Ephrata were actually willing to work with me, kind of like how he is. He's really, you know, like, he's raw, like I feel like he'd be easy to work with, like easy to be around, easy to like really connect with in school. I had a couple of teachers like that. For instance, in 4th grade, I had this phenomenal 4th grade teacher. Like, I really liked him. He was my favorite teacher I've had, Mr. Needleman.
Shout out to Mr. Needleman.
Honestly, yeah, shout out, you know. I was pretty bad in his class. I'm just keeping it whole being. Like, I was really dumb. I did some really bad things, and I was a very evil child in elementary school, but he worked with me a lot. Like, he made me a really happy child in 4th grade. Like, I had the most fun with him in elementary school ever.
Sometimes that's difficult, though, isn't it? For, you know, a kid who's acting out and, you know, to be nice to a kid like that can be difficult.
But if we think about this, behavior is communication. And what we're trying to do with restorative practices is understand, in Arheli's case, what he's trying to communicate. We're investing the time. Again, teachers are overworked, they're stressed out, they're making thousands of decisions an hour. You know, they're trying to communicate. What we're trying to do is build those skills, invest that time. I often say restorative practices is in the context building business, and it's in the latter business. If we've got a kid that's struggling, we need to go down there, we need to figure it out. If we have kids that are bored, if they're hyperactive, Those are blessings. Those are things to encourage. We'll just take that ladder and we're going to help them boost and we're going to get them up higher to be able to achieve what they're trying to do. Again, listen to how articulate and empathic this kid is. This kid's able to reflect. He's able to evaluate. Those are things that all schools should want to have. At Elanco, what we're trying to do is take a kid who's made a poor decision, help that kid take responsibility, make amends. And the other thing restorative practices does is it slows us down. We need to hear from all stakeholders. This isn't a drive-by empathy moment. This is we're going to take the time. I'm doing pre-conferences with kids. I'm calling parents. I'm inviting them into school. Teachers sometimes have very few moments every day where they're able to even pause and breathe. What I'm trying to do is invite parents in, hear from them, and be able to get what's going on. Our Helly's got a great mom. She's sitting over there.
I know,
She's so proud
and his
of him.
probation officer
And
as well.
So proud of him.
All right.
And being able to see this, what we're trying to do is
All right.
hear
Well, you're
from her.
obviously very passionate about this. We appreciate that. And you talked about stakeholders. We're going to hear what Pennsylvania prosecutors have to say about restorative justice when we come back.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
The Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association weighed in on restorative justice for us. Here's what the association had to say. It should certainly be reserved for crimes where the victim wishes to participate. These types of programs support a district attorney's individualized approach to cases, help address the issues that lead to crime in the first place, and importantly, repair the harm caused. And we have with us Christopher Fitz, who's with ADVOS, a community organization that deals with restorative justice, and Robert Fenimore, who's from Elanco School District, and our Ellie is here with us also, who went through this program. Chris, I want to ask you, what about that? How much is given to what the victim has to say in this case? We can't forget them.
Sure, it's absolutely important what victims have to say, and if they want to participate, and how they want to participate. And at the same time, I think it's really important, restorative justice isn't on, sort of every cable crime show series. You don't know what it's going to be like. A lot of people don't have imagination about it, and then don't want to participate because it sounds weird or strange or just an inconvenience.
And it could be uncomfortable for a victim. Not every victim wants to go through this with the perpetrator.
Absolutely. And I just have to say I facilitated a case myself. Young guy who, mid-20s, who was robbed by two young men. And he didn't want to participate at first. And I told him a little bit more about the process. And I said, you get to actually, you get to tell them how you feel and how angry you were and how all the kinds of consequences they would have never thought of. And so he said, okay. Well, by the end, he didn't want to give them any more community service. All he wanted them to do was get their driver's licenses. They actually turned out they were all, he was an auto mechanic,
So
and they wanted
the
to
victims
do,
learn something as
yeah,
well.
they wanted to do auto mechanics in school, and they ended up talking about being an auto mechanic right there in the middle of a victim offender conference.
So you never know what may come of this. We're sort of running out of time here, but if you want to weigh in on that a little bit.
I would also say for teachers being able to sit down and express to a student how their negative behaviors may be impacting them also is freeing for the teacher. It builds a connection between that teacher and the student. And for also the student to be able to say, here's what I'm not getting in your class now. That takes bravery for people to be able to sit down and do that. And I feel like teachers aren't in the punishment business. They're in the education
Right.
business.
They're in
And
the
restorative
teaching
practices
business, right.
opens this
All
conversation
right,
up.
so it's all about communication. And we will hear some final thoughts from you when we come back with In Focus.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
And we're back with some final thoughts on restorative justice. Arheli Ayala went through the program after kicking out a window at his school. How are you doing now, and what are you doing, Arheli?
I'm actually really good. I'm a lot better than where I was about a year ago. Got myself a job. I mean, the pay's not that great, but you know, it's a job. It's a job.
I think we all say that, right?
Yeah, it's a good job. I got people willing to help me. I mean, my mom over there, my probation officer. There's one person I definitely do have to give a shout out to because they've helped me through a lot of it. You know, she's like my best friend and my sister in a sense. My cousin Tati. She's been there for me like with a lot of different things. A lot of the times I'd be going through stuff where I'm angry, like she'll be there just talking to me about it. Like she's like my best friend.
So do you think going through this really helped you, the restorative justice practices?
Yes, it really did. Honestly, I probably would not have gotten as far as I have right now if it wasn't for that restorative justice because...
Do you think you might have ended up sometime down the road in prison, possibly?
Probably, yeah, definitely.
That must make you feel very good, the two of you,
it helps me a lot,
to hear his story.
Yeah, and it's sobering to hear, too, at the same time, that when I was that age, I would never have imagined myself in prison. So that's, it's a sobering possibility to imagine that, and really the whole point of restorative justice in the juvenile system especially, is that kids don't get there. Is that they get to learn and understand the impact of their actions before the consequences are so irreversible when you get a criminal record and then you're having a hard time getting a job.
And it's a whole
it gets
different
worse.
future, right? Well, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your story, Areli, and we wish you the best. Good luck in all of your future endeavors, and thanks for what you're doing. Great work.
Really enjoyed being on the show today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
We
for
enjoyed
having
having you. And we will be back next week with WGAL 8 in Focus, and that's at 7 o'clock right after NBC Nightly News.